He had not once sought my society of his own accord. His distaste for what he supposed me to be I don't exactly know what this was remained unshaken. I have thought that matters of dress and speech should not carry with them so much mistrust in our democracy. Thieves are presumed innocent until proved guilty, but a starched collar is condemned at once. Perfect civility and obligingness I certainly did receive from the Virginian, only not a word of fellowship. He harnessed the horses, got my trunk, and gave me some advice about taking provisions for our journey, something more palatable than what food we should find along the road. It was well thought of, and I bought quite a parcel of dainties, feeling that he would despise both them and me, and thus I took my seat beside him, wondering what we should manage to talk about for 263 miles. Farewell in those days was not said in cattle land. Acquaintances watched our departure with a nod or with nothing, and the nearest approach to "good-by" was the proprietor's "so long." But I caught sight of one farewell given without words. As we drove by the eating house, the shade of a side window was raised, and the landlady looked her last upon the Virginian. Her lips were faintly parted, and no woman's eyes ever said more plainly, "I am one of your possessions." She had forgotten that it might be seen. Her glance caught mine, and she backed into the dimness of the room. What look she may have received from him, if he gave her any at this too public moment, I could not tell. His eyes seemed to be upon the horses, and he drove with the same mastering ease that had roped the wild pony yesterday. We passed the ramparts of Medicine Bow, thick heaps and fringes of tin cans, and shelving mounds of bottles cast out of the saloons. The sun struck these at 100 glittering points, and in a moment we were in the clean plains, with the prairie dogs and the pale herds of antelope. The great still air bathed us, pure as water and strong as wine. The sunlight flooded the world, and shining upon the breast of the Virginian's flannel shirt lay a long gold thread of hair. The noisy American drummer had met defeat, but this silent, free lance had been easily victorious. It must have been 5 miles that we traveled in silence, losing and seeing the horizon among the ceaseless waves of the earth. Then I looked back, and there was Medicine Bow, seemingly a stone's throw behind us. It was a full half hour before I looked back again, and there, sure enough, was always Medicine Bow. A size or two smaller, I will admit, but visible in every feature, like something seen through the wrong end of a field glass. The eastbound express was approaching the town, and I noticed the white steam from its whistle, but when the sound reached us, the train had almost stopped. And in reply to my comment upon this, the Virginian deigned to remark that it was more so in Arizona. "A man come to Arizona," he said, "with one of them telescopes to study the heavenly bodies. He was a Yankee, seh, and a right smart one, too. And one night we was watchin' for some little old fallen stars that he said was due, and I saw some lights movin' along across the mesa pretty lively, and I sang out. But he told me it was just the train. And I told him I didn't know you could see the cyars that plain from his place. 'You can see 'em,' he said to me, 'but it is last night's cyars you're lookin' at.'" At this point the Virginian spoke severely to one of the horses. "Of course," he then resumed to me, "that Yankee man did not mean quite all he said. You, Buck!" he again broke off suddenly to the horse. "But Arizona, seh," he continued, "it certainly has a most deceivin' atmosphere. Another man told me he had seen a lady close one eye at him when he was 2 minutes hard run from her." This time the Virginian gave Buck the whip. "What effect," I inquired with a gravity equal to his own, "does this extraordinary foreshortening have upon a quart of whiskey?" When it's outside ye, seh, no distance looks too far to go to it." He glanced at me with an eye that held more confidence than hitherto he had been able to feel in me. I had made one step in his approval. But I had many yet to go. This day he preferred his own thoughts to my conversation, and so he did all the days of this first journey, while I should have greatly preferred his conversation to my thoughts. He dismissed some attempts that I made upon the subject of Uncle Hughey, so that I had not the courage to touch upon Trampas, and that chill brief collision which might have struck the spark of death. Trampas! I had forgotten him till this silent drive I was beginning. I wondered if I should ever see him or Steve or any of those people again. And this wonder I expressed aloud. "There's no tellin' in this country," said the Virginian. "Folks come easy and they go easy. In settled places, like back in the States, even a poor man mostly has a home. Don't care if it's only a barrel on a lot, the fellow'll keep frequentin' that lot, and if you want him you can find him. But out hyeh in the sagebrush, a man's home is apt to be his saddle blanket. First thing you know he has moved it to Texas." "You have done some moving yourself," I suggested. But this word closed his mouth. "I have had a look at the country," he said, and we were silent again. Let me, however, tell you here that he had set out for a "look at the country" at the age of 14, and that by his present age of 24 he had seen Arkansas, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, Oregon, Idaho, Montana, and Wyoming. Everywhere he had taken care of himself and survived, nor had his strong heart yet waked up to any hunger for a home. Let me also tell you that he was one of thousands drifting and living thus, but, as you shall learn, one in 1,000. Medicine Bow did not forever remain in sight. When next I thought of it, and looked behind, nothing was there but the road we had come. It lay like a ship's wake across the huge groundswell of the earth. We were swallowed in a vast solitude. A little while before sunset a cabin came in view, and here we passed our first night. 2 young men lived here, tending their cattle. They were fond of animals. By the stable a chained coyote rushed nervously in a circle, or sat on its haunches and snapped at gifts of food ungraciously. A tame young elk walked in and out of the cabin door, and during supper it tried to push me off my chair. A half-tame mountain sheep practiced jumping from the ground to the roof. The cabin was papered with posters of a circus, and skins of bear and silver fox lay upon the floor. Until 9 o'clock one man talked to the Virginian, and one played gaily upon a concertina, and then we all went to bed. The air was like December, but in my blankets and a buffalo robe I kept warm, and luxuriated in the Rocky Mountains silence. Going to wash before breakfast at sunrise, I found needles of ice in a pail. Yet it was hard to remember that this quiet, open, splendid wilderness, with not a peak in sight just here, was 6,000 feet high. And when breakfast was over, there was no December left, and by the time the Virginian and I were 10 miles upon our way, it was June. But always every breath that I breathed was pure as water and strong as wine. We never passed a human being this day. Some wild cattle rushed up to us and away from us. Antelope stared at us from 100 yards. Coyotes ran skulking through the sagebrush to watch us from a hill. At our noon meal we killed a rattlesnake and shot some young sage chickens, which were good at supper, roasted at our campfire. By 8:30 we were asleep beneath the stars, and by 4:30 I was drinking coffee and shivering. The horse, Buck, was hard to catch this second morning. Whether some hills that we were now in had excited him, or whether the better water up here had caused an effervescence in his spirits, I cannot say. but I was as hot as July by the time we had him safe